and Lot. So we're going to chapter 13 now, and remember Abraham and Lot, his nephew, uh, they were traveling together. They were nomads waiting for God to tell them where to settle. All right, but what happened is when it was their whole tribe, their cattle, their sheep, uh, whatever, and uh, so but as time went on, Lot's tribe grew, his cattle, his sheep, they grew, um, and so they got to a point where they just couldn't be all together. There were too many of them, and Abraham said to Lot, "Look, we need to just separate, and you choose where you want to go, and I'll choose and go the other way, and that's where how we will settle." So I wasn't going to read everything in the scriptures, but I put the most significant ones. So Genesis 13, okay, 11. Then Lot chose for himself all the land of Jordan, and Lot journeyed east. Thus they separated one brother from the other. Well, it was really his nephew, but Abram dwelt in the land of Canaan, which is Israel, and Lot dwelt in the villages of the plain, thus possessing the land as far as Sodom. Now, they put this sentence in here, and this is in preparation for chapter 19. All right. Now, the men of Sodom were wicked and sinners in the presence of the Lord exceedingly. And we'll learn that it was a really bad place later on. So, and if I go back here, just so you can tell, if you look up, well, you'll see that you'll see Canaan, and then you see the body of water there, and kind of like the little river. Well, Jordan, remember, east. Lot went east, and Jordan is east of that body of water. There is the Dead Sea, or what they call the Salt Sea, and so Lot was on this side over here to the east, and then Abraham occupied, what we now know as that land that's all of Israel now. So, and that is the Dead Sea or the Salt Sea, right there. All right, and then we go to 14. All right, this is the covenant. This is the covenant that the Lord made to Abram. All right, and the Lord said to Abram, after Lot had separated from him, "Lift up now your eyes and look from the place where you are, northward and southward, and eastward and westward. For all the land which you see, to you will I give it, and to your descendants forever. And I will make your descendants like the dust of the earth, so that if you can number the dust of the earth, then shall your descendants also be numbered." Okay, now, we do say, and we do, and sometimes I neglect to mention the 7 keys, but here, when we hear, and the Lord said to Abram, it comes under the key, the mysticism key. And you will see these phrases, and the Lord said, and the Spirit came upon me, and that indicates that it is a dream or a vision. And remember, that's how Abraham communicated with God. And a see, we say a vision or a dream or whatnot, but it's it's just communication, and it can be just thoughts or whatever put in your mind. But anyway, so we had the mysticism there, and then, and when I make your descendants like the dust of the earth, all right, that is symbolism. And when you see that, you see like it says your descendants like the dust of the earth. That's just a comparison um, of something that doesn't mean, well, guys, I can't think of the right words. Anyway, so your descendants like the dust of the earth. Um, it's like huge. There's no limit to what the number of your descendants. So that if you can number the dust of the earth, then shall your descendants also be numbered.
Like
And,
infinite?
I'm sorry?
Were you trying to think of infinite?
I don't know, infinite. But like just unlimited, so to speak, is what I,
Okay.
I just don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that word in infinite. It might cross over into the spiritual or something. But anyway, that is a form of symbolism, a metaphor there. Okay. Now, and that took pretty much took care of chapter 13. All right, and we go to chapter 14. Now, chapter 14 has the kings of the area fighting and whatnot. I didn't put all of those in there. We're not going to read all of that. But the main thing that happened was that the raiders, okay, and the raiders were part of the people that won in the valley there. Okay, they took all the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah and all their provisions and went their way. And they carried away Lot, Abram's brother's son, his nephew, who dwelt in Sodom, and his goods, and departed. Okay, so what happened? So what happened then is Abram learned from somebody, not what they say, somebody fled and told Abram that they had carried Lot away. And so, so Abram gathered up from his tribe and went and brought the goods. Well, he didn't see this part. They say nobody knows why they put this in there about the battle and about Abraham going and getting it. It's scholars don't really know, why it's there, because it just kind of was slipped in there because Abraham was not a warrior. Okay, but this gives the idea that but somehow, and they really don't know, but somehow he went, Abraham went, and he was able to bring back all of the goods that from Sodom and Gomorrah, and he got Lot and all of Lot's goods, brought them back. Okay. Now, 17, if we go to 17, and the king of Sodom went out to greet him after his return from the destruction of the forces of Cardla-Amar, and the kings who were with him at the valley of Shaveh, that is the king's valley. And the king of Sodom said to Abram, "Give me the people and take the goods for yourself." And Abram said to the king of Sodom, "I have lifted up my hands to the God Most High, the possessor of heaven and earth, that I will not take of anything that belongs to you, from a thread to a shoestring, lest you should say, I have made Abram rich. Save that which the young men have eaten, and the portions of the men who went with me, Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre, let them take their portions. Okay. So the thing here is, like I say, this story slipped in there, and there's different things, but I think the idea here, because we're looking at Abraham, we're looking at his character, because remember, Abraham is the father of the Jews, and technically, because the Jews, the Muslims, and the Christians would all come from the same thing. So Abraham was the father, and he was a righteous man, and some people always say, well, why did they choose Abraham and whatnot? Well, this kind of shows his nature, because he went and he got the goods back. And technically, when you go, and whether it was a battle, whatever it was, ordinarily you would keep that stuff and not worry about it. So I think it's just to take a look at Abraham's character, because he was in touch with God. And remember, he didn't have a Bible, and he didn't go to seminars, and but he had that instinct, that insight, because he was made, like we all are, in the image and likeness of God, and so he recognized that, and so that's the story, and it sort of just got slipped in there.
In your previous slide where it talked about Sodom having done horrible things or being horrible people or whatever it said.
Yes.
And I was always taught that meant that those people were sodomites or homosexuals and wanting men to lie with men, so to speak.
I'll tell you what, wait until chapter 19. But I can tell you that, but what I can tell you just up front is the Sodom, all right, that we're talking about, the town of Sodom back then, it was never, and the word Sodom was never associated with sodomy and whatnot. That came much later and was identified as sodomy and whatnot. But we're gonna do chapter 19 and Sodom and Gomorrah in detail.
Are you going to get into Zephaniah 2:10, which says that it was pride, that Sodom and Gomorrah, that their sin was pride?
That's part of it. Yep. And there's some other stuff. Yes, we
Okay.
we clearly will do that. There's so much misunderstood there.
It is.
Yep. Okay. Now, all right. Now we're gonna there really wasn't that much in these chapters, but all right. We go to Genesis 14, 18 to 20. All right. And so Abram is back with all the goods and people and whatnot. And so now we run into Melchizedek. Okay. Genesis 14, 18 through 20. And Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. He was the priest of the Most High God. And he blessed him, saying, Blessed be Abraham to God Most High, possessor of heaven and earth. And blessed be the Most High God, who has delivered your enemies into your hands and Abram gave him tithes of everything. Now, Melchizedek, the name is King of Righteousness. And now the thing that's different here and that's emphasized no matter what is the fact that Melchizedek was both a king and a priest. Okay, we got something on this in just a minute. All right, and of course, the King of Salem. Now remember, Jerusalem didn't exist at this time. Okay, and so, but Salem is where Jerusalem, what we know as Jerusalem now. Now,
So it
so
morphed into Jerusalem?
I'm sorry.
It morphed into Jerusalem, so to speak?
Well, remember the area, because Jerusalem didn't exist then.
Right.
It was way back. But the King of Salem is where Jerusalem is now. But Melchizedek. Let's read this because this will help to. Okay, small tribes, in order to avoid strife and excessive taxation, usually prefer a king priest as their ruler. Melchizedek was of this ancient order. He was ruler of a small tribe comprising half a district or more. His subjects were chiefly herdsmen and farmers. His authority as a king and a priest was recognized by all neighboring tribes who worshiped the same deity. Okay, now when it comes to him offering the bread and wine, okay, chiefs of other tribes whose people were followers of his religion offered him gifts as a token of friendly alliance and as a tithe to the deity, who always received a generous share of all spoils and plunders. When sheep, cattle, and commercial traffic passed through his territory, he exacted tithes or duties, just as is done today in certain regions. Some chiefs of powerful tribes demand a small tax from weaker tribes who are under their protection. Now, when a tribe plunders another clan, the chief of the tribe gives a tithe consisting of money, clothing, and livestock to the high priest or to the local priest as God's share. Now, we'll talk about Melchizedek, one more thing about him, and then we're going to talk about tithes, okay? All right, now, if you know anything about Melchizedek, all right, let me read this from Hebrews 7:3. Okay, and this is where it has been interpreted that Melchizedek was like, I'm just going to say spiritual, that he, and that he was sent down and whatnot. And the reason is because here from Hebrews 7:3, neither his father nor his mother is recorded in the genealogies, and neither the beginning of his days nor the end of his life, but like the Son of God, his priesthood abides forever. Now, this was taken off, has been taken, obviously, from the Abraham thing. All right, and many from, especially for the Christians, have it's like a spiritual order, the order of Melchizedek. We don't have any spiritualists here, but they're very much their ordinations and whatnot. they talk about the Order of Melchizedek because it seemingly this is where it came to. But in all actuality, culture-wise, we just read that was the way it was. That the tribes would, when they had to pass through or whatnot, that is what they would do. But Melchizedek and Jesus has been. It said that Jesus is part of the Order of Melchizedek. Now, but let's talk about tithes. And this is a little long here, but what we have is, okay, Abraham, that is where you first hear about tithes. Okay, but Abraham tithed to Melchizedek. Okay, now let me just go ahead here. The Aramaic word for tithe is masri, and it merely means 1/10 or a tenth. We're all familiar with that, I'm sure. Well, so what happened? All right, that's what Moses made it into a law. Okay, and I have this in here so that we can see the purpose of the tithing back then compared to really what it is now. It's similar, but okay. And so let's just run through this real quickly. All right. You shall truly tithe all the increase of your seed that the field brings forth year by year. And you shall eat before the Lord your God, in the place where he shall choose to set his name, the tithes of your grain, of your wine, and of your oil, and of the firstlings of your herds and of your flocks, that you may learn to revere the Lord your God always. I'm going to take a minute here and talk about this word revere, because we talk about it in the Aramaic language words, but I have another something, I have a little thing, I'm going to put it out there on YouTube. But this word, if I had the King James here, this is one of the many places that the word revere in the King James says fear. And I guess maybe this is one of my pet peeves, but when you think about this, and it's, you shall eat before the Lord your God, and do the tithes of grain, wine, that you may learn to. It just does not fit in my book. But anyway, I'm stuck on that. But the problem is, you see that that word was translated one time as fear, when it can mean revere and other things, and it was continued throughout the King James Bible and the whatever the newer ones. They're always talking about the fear of God, the fear of the Lord. Now, just food for thought for you. Now, what do you suppose that does to the concept of God? If you fear God, should we fear God or revere God? Anyway, okay. And if the way is too long, okay, long for you, so that you're not able to carry it, because the place where the Lord your God chooses to set his name is too far from you, when the Lord your God has blessed you. One more thing to remember here. This is what they ended up doing in a temple, but there's no temple yet either. Okay, there's no. This is just, there, and there's no religion. Okay. Then you shall turn them into money, and bind up the money in a cloth, keep it in your possession, and go to the place where the Lord your God chooses. You shall buy with that money whatever you desire, oxen or sheep. Okay, but and you shall eat there. The key was to eat it before the Lord your God, and you shall rejoice, you and your. Oh, pardon me for doing that. and you shall rejoice, you and your household. And the Levite who is within your towns, you shall not forsake him, for he has no portion nor inheritance with you. Okay, when it's originally set up, the priest, the priestly tribe, which is the Levites, they were not allowed to. They didn't work, or they didn't keep cattle or anything. All of their living came from the people, from the tithes and whatnot. The end of every 3 years, you shall bring forth all the tithes of your crops, and you shall lay it up within your towns, and the Levite who has no portion or inheritance with you. Okay, so they had to take care of the priests and the Levites and the proselyte. All right, the orphans and the widows. That's why they had to tithe, because orphans, widows, women didn't work. Women had no means of support unless they had a man. Okay, so if they were widowed and they had no other man, they had no other means of support, and that was the law, was up to the community to take care of that. Now, the thing about this is, all right, that was the law, and that's what they did. But that the Lord your God may bless you in all the work of your hand, which you shall do. Okay, you give, and you are blessed, and essentially that's what tithes should be about. However, we take a look at tithing now, and there's so much. I did something for someone else about tithes and stuff, because they just were just very upset, because anytime he would talk to the priest or the whatever, it was always money, 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 and you need to do this. And if you, of course, and if you don't, God will get you in some cases, which is totally not this stance that we teach. Of course not. And but the key to tithing, giving, period, is, well, I just have this little statement here, and in our society today, I believe that we have a choice to tithe and take care of any needs in our society. Now, some of us do tithe to a church, while others of us tithe for the needs of others directly. And we tithe to organizations that help others. But the key is, okay, so they had the law says, well, you should tithe, da, 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 da. But the key, and especially nowadays in our world, is it's how you feel about it. If you're just giving because, okay, well, this is what it has to be, I have to do this, and you get all stressed out about it. Well, it's really not. I mean, it's really not the way that it should be. All right, because if you tithe, if you give, period, then, and you give joyfully, with reverence to God and from the heart. If you're giving joyfully and from the heart, then we will be blessed and prosperous. And just from my experience, look, when I give people something, or I can do something for other, it is the greatest feeling. It just really is. And so I just thought we would do away with tithes. And right here, they don't come up too much anymore in the Bible that we'll be studying. But anybody have any particular comments about tithing and whatever?
I found that it is a spiritual law that really works. I was one time, I had divorced, moved into a house that my mother and I bought together. And she had unrealistic expectations that me and my two children would be available for wonderful dinners that she would cook every night. And that didn't happen. And she got very depressed. And I went to my minister for counseling, and we talked about tithing because I was in a minimum wage job, but it was what do you call it when you're if you're in sales, and when you make a sale, then you get a commission. That's
Commission.
what it was.
Yeah.
So I was in a minimum wage job, but with commission if I would make sales, and I hadn't made any yet. I had stuff in the pipeline, and the minister talked to me about tithing. And so even though I hardly had anything, I told my mom to go to a house that she owned elsewhere and I'd be fine. I started tithing. And in the next month, I was doing personnel placement. And in the next month, I made like 5 placements. And I totally replaced the income she had been providing for our housing. And I continued to make placements. And it was like a miracle, because I'd been working for months and hadn't made any placements.
Well, I totally know that is the case, and not necessarily just with tithes, but just with giving, period.
Yeah.
It is, if you want to call it a spiritual law or whatever, but I think it's just, well, to me, it's very much a part of Jesus' teachings, which, if you give, you will get. Now, what confuses, what gets a bad rap is that people, they say, oh, well, I gave, but you don't get back immediately. And, it's kind of like yours, you went and it took a little month, and then you got more and you got more. But I think that, in our world, people say, oh, well, I mean, I give that, and look at, no, you give, and then it will come back in due time, in the way, whatever your, I just said, whatever your plan or purpose is, it will come back. There's no question about it.
I think we have to give with humility and not expect exactly a certain way. I mean,
well, and I think that, because I keep recalling, in my Sunday school class one time, they're having a discussion and about tithing, and why tithe. Well, one person just said, well, because we obey, and God, and that's what God, that's what God said, and that's what we, and not condemning that, okay, but then the other person said, well, look, my father owned a garage or something, I don't know, and he was just down and out, probably in the economic times and whatnot. And he just, similar to your situation, he began tithing. I think it was to the church there, and he did it religiously. And she said everybody else was having problems and whatnot, and he never stopped doing it, and he's been successful with his business and everything. But it is from the heart. You have to do it.
yeah.
You have to do it from the heart, not because you have to.
No, not with expectations, actually.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
And yeah, it feels, honestly, it feels so much better. If you don't, uh, if you don't expect and you, I don't know, that's just me. I'm just weird, but I don't expect anything in return. But I just, I just like to do. That's all.
Mhm.
So, okay. All right. Well, I guess we will be done for tonight. Okay. Now, next week, next week we get into Abram's, the famous visions and Abram and Sarai and whatnot. And those are exciting. And we will get to chapter 19, Theodore, because chapter 19 is Sodom and Gomorrah. So we will,
Yeah,
we
okay.
will
But
get
I
that.
was talking about Zephaniah, chapter
Well,
2, verse 10.
we'll combine it in there. It's kind of,
Yeah.
it's
I
kind of,
wanted to ask you, have you been watching that new series called The Chosen?
no. What is it called?
The Chosen.
Mm-mm.
It's
What,
really good, I think.
what
And
is it on? What, I mean, what?
you can sign up for the right now you can see it on YouTube, but you sign up for the app, The Chosen, and it's free, totally free. And you can he explained why the title The Chosen. It could be that Christ Jesus was chosen, but so far there's been only 2 seasons, and it's been more about the disciples,
Oh, wow.
and they were chosen, and but it's really well done. I think I would highly
Okay.
recommend you go and watch it.
Okay. Well, we appreciate that. We all learn from each other. So,
Yeah,
so
and
that's great.
they're doing a great job, and what he does is fill in background of what he thinks would realistically life would have been like. So it's not just this
Yeah.
flat, thing. And the characters are just wonderful,
Okay.
especially Michael.
All right. Well, we'll look for the chosen and we'll see what Michael's all about. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, we will end with thank you, God, and see you next week and with Abraham's Abraham's big dreams. Okay.
Yes.
Good night.